Unconventional Chess, and today we're going to be discussing the challenge that I've been issuing to all the members of the last couple of weeks. And I know that sometimes taking up a challenge is definitely very difficult and requires a few brave ones to be able to take it up. But we finally had somebody that answered our challenge a few days back, and it was Primro. And just to give you a little bit of background on Primro, I think he's an excellent chess player, and I was playing him 4 games, and I'm going to be sharing just the most memorable one that I feel is very instructive. And it definitely was not an easy game for me, actually. You played a lot of moves that made me think very hard about what do I want to do next, and I had to play incredibly precisely. But I think that this new opening is going to be one where you're going to be scratching your heads and going to say to yourself, wait a minute, I've never seen that before, and where the heck have I seen this? And maybe you'll get some insight as to what to do with it. And I thought that we'll just get started now. So we're going to start with the first move, and this is what's called the Amarr opening with knight to h3. And think so, what is this? The knight is going to the side, right? Now, normally I would develop it to the king side with knight to f3. But that in and of itself, now let me just go to the analysis here. I think the analysis is definitely the better way to do this, because that way you'll be able to kind of go and now can just manipulate the board. So let's take this out, settings, just unlimited. Okay, so we'll start here with knight to h3, and now we're going to get some very interesting opening theory. So he starts off with b6, and I'm white, and then Primro is black. And then it's here e4, bishop e7, knight c3, e6, d4, knight 7, bishop d3, f5, castles. Now, I don't think there's really anything here. There's really too out of the ordinary. I mean, you can see here that it's a pretty central game with some central tension here with my e4 pawn and, of course, bishop. On the queen side is putting some pressure on it, and as we see here, the pressure is one where, in the center, it's always about who releases it first. And it'll be very interesting to see what happens. And so, looking at the next move, with f takes e4, okay, so black releases first the tension in the center. And I think it's very interesting, actually. Like, if I had to say, you know, what was probably the best move in this position instead of f takes e4, probably would have been just g6, because g6, it offers really great support for black's king side, and at the same time he can develop a bishop g7, and then at the same time putting the central pressure on my d4 pawn. And then, of course, after bishop g7, black can castle. So let's go back to the first move that Primro played, where he played f takes e4. Okay, nice to play bishop takes e4. Now, the reason why I do this is because I like to challenge the supremacy of the bishop, and if black were to do something like d5, it would just make the bishop look kind of foolish, because after all, the pawn would just be blocking his own bishop, and at the same time, there would be a backward pawn on e6. Case in point, if I were to do that, the pawn on e6 just looks incredibly weak, and so that's why it was not played. And then, of course, it would just be much harder for this bishop to have any sort of power in the game. And so let's go back here, and then instead, black makes a much better move, actually, and he plays knight b to c6. And so I like this because, you know, it's getting this piece development done, and is able to go. And if he wants to, let's say, push e5 to try to have some equalization, that will bring some very nice advantage for black, and also a very nice dynamic game. So I finished with bishop to e3, d5. I don't think that's the best move, just because with d5, again, it brings us backward pawn on e6, and at the same time, it lessens the power of the bishop on b7. Probably the better move is just maybe something like knight g6, where bishop can now develop, let's say, to e7, which would be, again, I don't know why this is not working, but okay, so let's say bishop e7, and then castles kingside. So that, I think, would be very nice. And so if I go here, just, okay. So bishop e3, d5, and then I just retreat bishop f3. And then come to this point where, after a few moves, black castles queenside. Now that's very interesting because castling queenside, we can see here that black now set the tone of the game, where it's opposite side castling, and in many games where you have castling on opposite sides by white and black, you have this dynamic where it's all about who can start the attack first and whose attack is faster. And I think in this game it'll be very, very interesting to see what will happen with black with his development, especially his bishop on f8, which is still not developed quite yet. And right now the game's, I think, is about equal. And so let's move on here. So, okay, with a3, h6. I'm not sure if I understand this move. I don't think that really contributes a whole lot to the game. And again, g6 would have been much better, because then you can develop bishop on g7, while at the same time, the fact that you can now push in the center, let's say e5, and then bring some equalizing, or at least just putting some pressure on the d4 pawn. So now I want to get my attack going pretty fast, actually, because, again, the side that can develop its attack fastest will be the one that gains the most lasting advantage. So I continue with b4, g5, bishop h5, to f5. I think it's okay, actually, although bishop is actually the weaker bishop compared to my light square bishop, because the principle goes that you want the pawns on the opposite color as the bishop. So in other words, it would be a dark square bishop, but with pawns on light squares, and that way the bishop can fill the holes of the pawns. So here, the bishop is just kind of weak. It's not really doing anything, and why would black want to exchange it? Well, we'll have to see if it actually does that. So the game continues bishop g4, and black retreats with knight f to e7. Now, unfortunately, this here is a little bit of a mistake, because pawn e6 is pinned, and there's a lot of pressure, especially now that the bishop can move. And actually, now it could be a very good piece, because let's say I were to play... Now, I probably should have done this, because I did make a mistake with this. I should have just played bishop takes g5. Now, I did not do that, I guess, just because of due to, like, oversight of time. But now, the queen is pinned. Actually, if he takes a bishop like this, or, oh wait, I'm sorry, no, let me go back. How the heck did that happen? I do not know. Bishop g4, knight f7. Okay, so let's go back to the analysis. So then if I go bishop takes g5, basically the queen's pinned after this, because if, let's say, that h takes g5, then we have bishop takes e6, and whoops, queen is dead. So why did I not discover this? I do not know. So let's go back. Just knight takes g5, and then black takes. Now, it's very interesting, because I guess I could still win pawn anyway, and just these bishops are extremely strong pieces, now that the bishops are eyeing the king, and putting a lot of, I'm sorry about that, putting a lot of pressure on the rook. And at the same time, like, whether or not black has any activity along this h-file will remain to be seen. So, black obviously takes advantage of my mistake, which finally retreats. Now, of course, he'll just lose a pawn, but he will not lose his queen, thankfully, with queen to e8. Then take on e6, okay, lose the king. And this is what's really interesting here. You notice that the bishops, the light square bishop actually had one pin, but now suddenly it's the dark square bishop now has a pin of its own, where you see now that the knight can't move, it's now pinned to the rook. And then if the knight moves, actually, then the queen will suddenly become pinned by the rook on e1. And so it's a very very tough game for black right now because just his pieces are kind of strangling itself. So then I decided, oh, wow, look, this is nice. Knight can't really move now than the rook, because obviously if, let's say, knight takes and then rook takes, and then knight takes and bishop takes d5, whoa, okay, now the rook is threatening the queen, and then at the same time there's a lot of pressure along the queen side with black king. And so I just took it anyway. Now, I think black is incredibly smart, and obviously saw what my plan was. So then he decided to get the queen out of the pin with queen to g6, which is pretty good, actually, attacks the bishop, and the fact that also, like, sorry about that, if the bishop is not careful, of course, and the knight is hanging, so I play queen to g4 to defend that, actually. So now that if this knight takes d5, then just bishop takes d8, because now, like, the queen's not pinned because the bishop defends the queen on g4. So we go here with just queen to h7. Now, of course, black is threatening to take pawn on h2 with queen takes h2. And, of course, that'll be a threat because if, let's say, you took the pawn and I have to move the king to f1, then the king is just in a very bad position, and just the king will now just block my own rook, and so that is a threat. So I then parry that with h3. And, again, I would have liked to see the rook maybe move to, like, let's say, like, rook d6 to try to get out of this pin by my bishop, or even, let's say, just, like, rook to e8, which would also be pretty good, although probably not, because I could just play bishop e7. So black plays a6. And I kind of thought about this position for a bit, because I had, like, a few minutes left on my clock. And interestingly, we see here with this a6, it actually... I didn't actually think it was a blunder until after I saw the game. But assuming you could guess, and of course probably, like, you'll see the move now, if you could take, like, probably about 10 seconds, and then kind of see what exactly do I have planned afterwards. Because suddenly, like, you realize, like, wait a minute, okay, there's these pawns here, bishop's not developed, rook's kind of cut off for the game. What could white do that would just make the king, like, be overly exposed, and at the same time it would just make my bishop even stronger? Now the bishop could, kind of come over here, say. Take 10 seconds, starting from now. The move actually made was knight takes c7. You thought, so, wow! What was that by white? He just took the knight. But the key thing here is that the knight traps the bishop. And so it works very well, actually, because there's nothing really to protect the king. I mean, literally, the white square is covering over here. Queen can't go and defend the king. And then, of course, there's, like, a lot of really, nasty things I could do as white, like just playing bishop f4 and threatening discovery. And so, I guess black is just forced to either take my knight, which is where he did king takes c7, and then I play bishop f4 check. Now, it's almost funny here, because it's like, I'm not doing anything other than checking his king, but his home pieces are strangling his king. And so literally, like, there's actually no moves that he can do, because if you were just to play knight e5, for example, then just bishop takes e5 check, and there's literally nowhere that black can move. I mean, okay, let's say king to c6, and then queen to f3 check is incredibly strong. Right, because if, let's say, like, knight d5, then we have c4, which just traps the knight, and, of course, just makes it that much closer to mate by white. I mean, of course, you can play something like b5, check, king here, and then the key move here is just something like queen to c3, Because rook, of course, just can't intercede because the bishop controls it, and now actually there's mate that's threatened with queen to c7 check. Or actually, no, I'm sorry. Actually, just queen to c3, let's say, and then followed by, like, rook ac1. So that in and of itself would be really, really difficult for black. Now, if we go back to the original thing here, bishop f4 check, rook d6, I don't really see anything else here that could potentially get black out of this, like, nasty attack by white. So the game continues with just me playing bishop takes d6 check, king takes, and then queen g3 check. Literally, black would be checkmate if he didn't play this move knight e5, which I take. And then just the attack is just really ferocious at this point. Because literally just the black king can't move, and he only has one option, which is play king to c6, which is what he does. Check. King b5. Now, I suppose I could have just played c4 check, because that would have actually led to a discovery with d6, and then, of course, that just gives my rook on a1, like, a nice ability to get into the attack. So, but I still play d6 check, which is also equally as good. d5, okay, bishop takes. The game is pretty much, I think, just a matter of just black just playing some moves just to kind of see, like, where time control heads. So then a4 check. Now, white would not, black would not play king takes b4 because just rook eb1, which would just eventually lead to mate, as we see here, like this. Rook eb1 check, and then really the only move is king to c5. And then rook b5 is mate, and so that cannot be done by black. And so he retreats king to a6. And I guess there are a few ways you can do this. I mean, you just play b5, but I decided to play check. King takes, queen d5 check, king c8. And, of course, it's really difficult for black at this point. It's part of the fact he's down material. It's more just the rooks have so much activity now, and as we'll see here with rook e8 check, king d7. Now, I kind of thought to myself, okay, I thought I already mated him, but I guess I didn't. So we continue queen to e6 check, king c6, d7. Oh, so now finally black can get his bishop into the game, and he does have bishop d6, although I don't think that's going to really matter here, because rook c8 check. And, of course, black's forced taken, so otherwise it would just almost literally be equivalent to forced mate here after king b7, and then just queen d5. So as we'll see here, for example, we played this, and just queen to d5 check. And black's either forced to play king a7 or king a6, let's say here, then just queen a is mate. So that's not going to work. So black's forced to play rook takes c8, and then queen. And in this case, actually, I think black resigns. If I go back to the game here, let me just check this for a second. Yeah, because black resigns here, actually, and it might be lost on time if I remember correctly. But the game's pretty much over here, because if queen to c7, then what we have here is just queen c4 check, bishop c5, d6, b5 check, king d6, and then queen d6 is mate. Queen at 4 d6 check. So it was a very lovely game, and there are a lot of lessons to be learned in this, and among them are that you want to make sure that you develop your pieces early in the game, and I think that one of the most important things here about it is just to realize that, pawn moves are very, very delicate, I think. And as we see, we go back to the original, opening with, say, let me go back here, with d5, what we see here is that sometimes it looks tempting to push pawns in the center, and one where everyone must fight for the center, and I get that, but the problem is that sometimes it can actually lead to what's called a backward pawn, as we see with like e6. This is a backward pawn because there's nothing defending it. And at the same time, when you make pawn moves, you want to be able to make sure your bishops can, kind of fill the holes that the pawn creates. And so that's one of the mistakes Black made in the opening, where just his light square bishop was all but dead because his own pawns were blocking it. So that's very important in your games, where when you develop your pieces, always make sure that your pieces have freedom of movement and just there's nothing blocking it. And at the same time, the pawns, they play very useful supporting roles. That's how I see them. And at the same time, always make sure that whenever you're think about the king and you castle, king can actually be a very useful supporting piece, but however, you also want to make sure that the pieces don't strangle themselves, as we saw in the middle game, where if we go back to knight takes d5, like, Black's pieces just strangle themselves because like, you can't defend anything with them, and it's incredible. But I think that's a very important principle to show here, where just the bishops on an open board are extremely powerful versus the knights, where knights literally are just pointing at each other, and they're good in very close games, but not this one, which was not a close game. And I hope that all of you found this game very instructive, and if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below, and I'll be more than happy to answer them. I think that this opening is a wonderful opening, knight to h3, and I have some other games that I will share with them, because I have one game where I just go and I just develop them on the side, and then Black just gives up his bishops, or as in the case if I'm playing Black, where White would give up his bishop on a6 and h6. And it's very interesting to see what happens in the game where you have this double pawn structure, but then I have two bishops for it. So I hope you all enjoyed it. Look forward to sharing it, and hope you're having a great day, everybody. And we'll stop here.